Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Genius Podcast. My name is Joshua Mitchell.
And I'm Sarah Mitchell.
And we will be your hosts for this podcast.
Today, we're going to be talking about Apple versus Facebook privacy wars.
But before we get into that, we just want to do some brief introductions with you guys so you can get to know who we are. Sarah, why don't you go first?
Sure. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I studied biology, chemistry, and art in college, but right now I'm doing a lot of graphic design.
Awesome. So, again, my name is Joshua Mitchell. I am 32. I studied psychology in school. I worked for Apple for about 4.5 years as a lead technician. I'm also a software developer. And I am running a company here in the Virgin Islands called Joshua the Genius that focuses on training people in Apple products and also fixing and repairing their Apple products.
So why don't we just tell the folks a little bit about what our mission is for the podcast? Because I know we discussed wanting to educate folks about different technology topics, because this is going to be folding in with our nonprofit, which teaches kids how to code as well. But this podcast is really going to focus on tech culture. I'm going to be bringing the consumer perspective. Joshua's going to be bringing the industry perspective. And tell the folks a little bit about what our goal is for the podcast.
Definitely. So we just want to start having some conversations with you guys and start bringing more awareness around things that might be affecting you in the tech culture that you just might not be aware of. Privacy is a huge concern right now going in the tech culture. There are things happening on your devices that are dealing with your data that you just aren't aware of. There are things going on with data science, with different space explorations, with computer science. There's just so many things going on in the industry that you might not be aware of. So we want to use this podcast to start having conversations around those topics and bring awareness to those concepts.
Okay, so let's launch into what we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to be talking about Apple versus Facebook privacy wars. So let's give the folks a little bit of a download on privacy.
Definitely. So privacy, I'm pretty sure that you guys have seen those that use smartphones or when you get onto the internet and start browsing around on the internet, you'll start to see pop-ups that will ask you for maybe authentication or access to your location or access to your contact list or access to certain parts of your photo albums. Privacy is all around you as a user being able to control what these companies have access to, right? Privacy is a huge American value. We have fought for it for a very long time, and underneath the Constitution, we believe that we have a right to user privacy. That's not only our physical effects, but also our digital effects.
So Apple introduced a new feature with iOS 14 called App Tracking Transparency. And the reason why this is such a contentious topic is because it's going to affect how Facebook is currently monetizing on our private data. So can you explain a little bit about what is App Tracking Transparency?
Definitely. So like I said before, as you are using these third-party applications, so let's use Facebook for example. When you start using the application will ask you for access to your camera, into your
contacts,
mic. Contacts, mic, but camera and mic. And with iOS 14, when Facebook asks you for that information, you'll start to get new indicators on what pieces of your phone are being used by that application. So when you start to do a Facebook Live, you'll see at the top of your screen, you'll see a green indicator that will indicate that the application is using your camera, and you'll see an amber indicator that will indicate that that application is using your mic. So it's giving you more awareness about how that company is using the application. Where the issue comes in is before iOS 14, your phone automatically gave access to these certain features of your device just by you downloading the application. So Facebook, most of the time,
it's embedded in the privacy, those terms and conditions that you agree to when you say I want to use your app. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So we're all aware of those long pages of terms and conditions and privacy policies. So there's a lot of authorization of features that are embedded in those terms. So companies know that you may not take the necessary time to read all of that. So when you sign up for that user profile or you sign up for access to the application, you're automatically giving these companies access to certain features of your phone, such as your camera, your mic, photos, etc. Location data. Yes. So what Apple has done with iOS 14, they've basically put up a kind of a like firewall or a safety net for you as a user, so that anything that the third-party application wants access to in your phone, you have to directly give that company access, and you'll see that in a little pop-up, right? So if you want Facebook to have access to your location, you have to explicitly state and press on that button that says allow, that will give Facebook access to your location. Same thing for your mic, same thing for your photo album, same things for other metadata points, and we'll talk about metadata here soon. Do you have anything to say on that?
Facebook's problem with this feature with Apple is, well, they're claiming that it's going to affect their small business owners that are trying to advertise through their platform. So where is that connection between us allowing Facebook to access our private data and how are small businesses able to use this for advertising? Why is that so important?
Definitely. So Facebook, based on this data, right? So Facebook, I had a Facebook account. This was 2004 or 5 when I was in high school, right? And that's back when Facebook, you were only allowed access to Facebook if you had a university email address. So your email address had to end in .edu for you to gain access to the platform, because Facebook started out as a way for college students to be able to communicate with one another. Then it just grew, and Facebook saw the benefit of allowing all users into the platform, and then Facebook became a way for people to kind of connect with old friends or people that they just weren't able to maybe physically contact. They were able to find them through Facebook. The way that they were able to find them through Facebook was by the metadata that saved on your user profile that Facebook stores, right? So that metadata is your location, where you live, where you went to school, what's your favorite color, what are some of your favorite movies, who are some of your friends, where do you work, what friends have you removed from your friend list. There's so many data indicators, data points that Facebook collects on you just by you signing up as a user and filling out that questionnaire to make your profile more robust, right? And so people were using these features to be able to find friends, and it's a great platform for that feature. However, all of the data that Facebook has been collecting since 2002, 2003, up until now, has been at the ignorance of the user. The user wasn't fully aware that all of this information was being saved for this long. Over time, Facebook has been able to now, they've been able to implement an ad strategy based upon their users. If memory serves me correct, I think Facebook is over 100 million users now, right? And Facebook is one of the biggest ad platforms in the world. The reason why they are that big powerhouse of an ad platform is because they're able to show these ads directly to their users based upon targeted indicators, right? So
Facebook is basically saying, okay, now there's in your settings, you can go and see how Facebook has categorized you based on your political beliefs and all of these different data points that they're aggregating. They put you in a category. So they can come to businesses and say, okay, this is your specific demographic that you're trying to target. We're only going to put it in front of those eyes. So they're maximizing their ad dollars.
1,000%, yes. Okay. And the war between Facebook and Apple right now is that Facebook believes they are upset at Apple because Apple has implemented, like I said with iOS 14, they have implemented a way for the transparency, right? For you to know at the top level, right in front of your eyes, what information Facebook or any other third-party company can have access to. There's been some studies saying that users, if they are given the choice for that third-party application to gain access to your phone, 50% of the time they will decline, right? So let's say out of that 100 million users with this new feature, right? Facebook was able to gather information on that 100 million users because it was automatically being given. Now with iOS 14, that 100 million users may drop down to 65, may drop down to 45.
So
right?
that's why Facebook is like, oh, you're against small businesses.
Exactly.
Okay, but Apple is really just saying, Facebook, you can collect the data, but you have to ask first.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. It's all about consent, right? Privacy is synonymous with being able to provide an access or being able to gather consent from the user, right? Apple wants a transparent view between the applications that are downloaded onto the devices that its users use, right? We want to make sure that they're protected. Yes.
So to put an applicable experience to this, there was a period in time I remember I would talk about something and then I would start seeing ads popping up in Facebook. So that's because I allowed access for the mic. So now that's how Facebook is saying, okay, I'm hearing specific words, so I'm gonna start pushing ads that are about the words that I'm hearing. Okay.
So not only Facebook, there's a lot of other platforms that do the same. Amazon has some services that gather, they call it ambient noise, right? They have algorithms or software that's able to analyze audio in the background. So if you're at home, right, sitting in front of your smart TV and it's connected to Alexa or connected to Facebook in some way, if the privacy terms state that they can leave the mic open, right? You don't necessarily have to cut the mic on. They can leave the mic open even if you're not using it's still powered on. If you're not using the product, the mic is still picking up what they call ambient noise, and that's your voice. Through that, they're able to pull out certain keywords, right? So if you're talking about shoes and the brand name of Nike comes up, when you open up Amazon or you open up Facebook, you may start to see ads that are Nike shoes, right?
Yeah.
While that is while that's very good for the user to be able to get content or things that they want to buy, the user may not be aware that the mic is on 24/7. And there may be things that the user wants to keep private inside of their home that they may not want to share with Facebook, right? Conversations about your family, conversations about your loved ones, conversations about work. Those things are also being picked up and stored on Facebook servers.
Question. Now, we see all the stuff that's happening in the States right now with these white supremacist groups that are like going crazy. Now, let's say these folks have these products in their homes and it's picking up all of this ambient noise. Now we see what happened at the Capitol. The FBI is trying to find these people. What happens now? Is the FBI like justified in saying, Google, Facebook, we need to scrub this ambient noise audio because these people are a security threat? Like where is that line in the sand as far as we're talking about how I as a user can be more informed and protect my data and my information. So if I'm just allowing Facebook to gather this data, like where is that line as far as what can the government demand access to?
And I think that's where the conversation is right now, right? Where is that? Where is the equilibrium? How far can the government impinge upon user privacy?
Infringe upon.
Infringe upon. Thank you. Infringe upon user privacy, but then also be protected by the Constitution.
Okay, so now let's start digging in a little bit more to maybe some of the history of like privacy law with our country, because this is such a fundamental issue for our democracy because it's one of the pillars that we built our democracy on. So when before our country was even formed and we were getting fed up with the British government because the British government would be like, if we want to blaze up in your house and search through your stuff, we don't gotta bring paperwork. We're gonna just show up. We're gonna rustle through your stuff and do what we gotta do. And
No
our
cause.
the founding fathers of this country, like, it wasn't about that. So when they started writing the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, all of these founding documents, they included in there provisions for privacy. So we talk about search and seizure. You have to come with a warrant if you're gonna search my personal effects, my house, my car. Now there are different court cases throughout the year have kind of, started to draw that line as far as what if you're in the car, which parts of the trunk and the glove box cannot be searched without your explicit consent or a warrant from a court of law. What we see through time, though, even though there are those provisions in the Constitution, Bill of Rights, for the protection of these specific articles, as technology has developed over the years, we kind of see a push and pull between technology advancing and the government taking advantage of the advancement of technology to surveil its citizens. So there's that infringing on that privacy, and then the pushback is, the laws rising to meet that advancement in technology. So where are we now we're seeing that the technology that is present in social media has gotten ahead of us in regards to what is our data that's protected there, and where are we with that? What can we do as informed digital citizens to protect our digital privacy? Because it's very clear what our physical documents and assets, how they're protected, but how can we protect our digital assets, that metadata, so to speak?
So I think, well, first I want to bring up an example, right? So there was the San Bernardino case that dealt with an iPhone, I believe it was an iPhone 4 or iPhone 5, okay? And the FBI wanted access to this user's phone because they had committed a crime. Now, the phone was passcode locked, okay? It had a 4 or 6-digit passcode on it. This wasn't Touch ID, this wasn't Face ID, this was only when iPhones came with a digit passcode or an alphanumeric passcode. So the FBI took the phone to Apple and said, hey, we need to get into this phone, break open this phone so we can get the data out of here. Apple said, no, we don't store user passwords. That's only stored on the device and for the user to protect their data. We don't keep that information. The FBI was very, very frustrated and angry with that because they felt that Apple was stopping an investigation or not cooperating with the government. But that wasn't the case. The reason that the digit passcode is put in place is to protect your information for people who do not have authorized access to it. Okay? Even if the FBI was to gain a warrant to gain access to that information, the Apple would still have would be able to discern if they would be able to provide that service, and it's on a case-by-case basis. Apple has worked with the government and successfully worked with them to go after criminals, but it's at the
it has to present a significant threat to national security.
I would assume. To present a significant threat to national security, and then there are still even instances to where Apple is not able to get into the phone, right? The FBI has found.
This is when we're talking about like firewall level encryption.
Correct.
Okay.
So there are companies that specialize in data recovery. There are companies that specialize in data transfer, right? Companies such as Drive Savers that specialize in data recovery. There's Celebrite that used to be used in the Apple stores that does a direct transfer of data from device to device. And I think that Celebrite was actually the company that the FBI partnered with to be able to gain access into the phone. This conversation gets into cybersecurity and encryption, right? And gets into what we what's termed as a backdoor, right? A backdoor is basically a fail-safe or a secret method.
Skeleton key.
A skeleton key, yes, that is able to access any device that is built for the skeleton key. So, for example, if Apple had the skeleton key, you would be able to bring your phone into the Apple store, and they would be able to unlock it for you without erasing your data first. Okay.
So when people come with activation lock, which is where you reset the phone, but there's still an iCloud email. Like when you're going to set up the phone, it's asking for a password to unlock the iCloud. So you're saying if there was a backdoor, I would have been able to say, bing, now I'm into the phone regardless of the activation lock.
Correct. The method to bypass a lost or forgotten passcode is to restore the phone. And restore means fully wipe out the phone of its data and operating system and install the operating system fresh, like it's coming fresh out of the box, right? That's the method to protect your data. But if there was a skeleton key, I would be able to take that phone, use that key, open it, unlock your phone, and then get access all to your information. That means that if Apple were to have that skeleton key, if it were to be produced, it is highly, highly likely that that key could be duplicated. And once it's duplicated,
it presents a security threat
huge security risk.
Now people can focus on a point of entry
Correct.
For these devices. Okay.
Correct. So there have been in the past there were a high level of thefts of iPhones. People were losing or are being held up at gunpoint. Brutal. It's
a luxury product.
Yeah, it's a luxury product. They were beaten up. People were losing their iPhones at an alarming rate. So these things have been implemented by Apple to protect the user.
To thwart those
thwart those threats and protect the user. So.
Okay, so let's talk. Let's inform people a little bit more about what can I do as a consumer to protect my data.
Yes.
Can I be more conscious and aware of what my data is and how I can protect it?
So passwords. Right, making sure that you have a strong password, right? So strong passwords consist of, so right now the standard password is 4 digits, right? There's a method that hackers use called brute force. And brute force is basically just trying any key combination until you get it right.
Run all possible combinations.
Run all the possible combinations. The fail-safe on the Apple platform, right, and with iOS and macOS is that it will only allow you, I think,
so many attempts.
I'm not sure the number.
Before it locks you out for 20 million minutes.
Correct. Yeah. It's not going to get you all the way to that 10,000. The phone is going to disable itself before it even gets to that 10,000.
And erase your data.
And
if
like
you
I said,
choose, because that's an option.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, that's the 4-digit. 6-digit is, 1 million?
Yeah, 4 digits allows you 10,000 possible combinations.
Mm-hmm.
6 digits allows you 1 million possible combinations. So you have about a 99-time increase of possibilities from the 10,000 to the million.
Correct. Same thing for, so that's just digit passcodes, right? Now we put on another layer of encryption, right, with Touch ID or Face ID, okay? I believe Touch ID has the potential to for somebody to have your same thumbprint, right, is 1 out of 50,000, right? So if you
I just have a twin out there that I don't know about.
Right. So
my fingerprints.
That's highly unlikely, right? 1 out of 50,000. With Face ID, it's 1 out of 1,000,000, and that's just because there are more data points on your face than they are with your thumb, right? There's less data points here, so it's easier to for somebody to duplicate your thumbprint as opposed to your face, right?
Okay.
So that's why facial recognition is becoming more popular now, right? All of that information is your face information, your fingerprint information. It's not actually a bioscan, and this gets back to what I was talking about with the San Bernardino case. It's not actually a bioscan. Okay, the amendment that protects what is it? Being able
The
to
persons?
incriminate yourself.
Self-incrimination.
Yes. I forget which amendment this is. I forget which amendment this is, but it protects you from being able to self-incriminate yourself, right? So what I mean by that is that if a policeman stops you or somebody stops you and they want to gain access to your phone, they cannot force you to put in your digit passcode. Okay? They cannot do that. It's just like them saying, them forcing you to speak. You have the right to be silent. The only way that they can get access into your phone or into your car into certain areas is through a warrant, through consent by either yourself or through a judge. Okay? The digit passcode protects you from that. The FBI is arguing right now that the Face ID and Touch ID don't equal a digit passcode. Okay? I would argue against that. The way that Face ID and Touch ID work, it's not actually a bioscan. It's basically using these indicator points on your face or on your thumb and tracing encrypted code on them.
It's like making a big ass math problem.
Right, and then saving that math problem. It's not saving the bioscan of your body. It's not
actually scanning the ridges of my finger.
No.
Okay.
No, right? So it's remembering what those ridges look like and then applying a mathematical equation on that to then say, hey, do both of these mathematical equations
does it match?
Equal?
It's like comparing photographs.
Correct. So it's just like a digit passcode. Does 1, 2, 3, 4 equal the same 1, 2, 3, 4 that was here previously? Right?
Okay.
So that's what the argument is there.
Okay, so that's to lock the phone. What about VPNs?
VPNs. So VPNs are virtual private networks. Okay. Basically, VPNs. A good example would be, let's say you are in a mall and I'm looking at you from the balcony. If you weren't using a VPN, I could be able to see your face amongst the crowd. If you were using a VPN, you would still be able to move in the crowd, but you would have a mask on. I wouldn't be able to identify who you are, right?
Okay.
So VPNs mask your identity on the internet, okay? Or they reroute your traffic on the internet
a server.
Through other servers to mask your activity on the internet.
So the website is seeing the server's address as opposed to my personal address.
That is correct. Okay. So there are ways that people use VPNs. Let's say they need to access a private server and they need a private connection to that server, they'll use VPNs. If they need to access content in a different region that they have access to,
Disney Plus.
I
hear a lot of people are using VPNs to access Disney Plus for this reason, because in the Virgin Islands, as you know, we're a part of the United States, but we're treated internationally on a case-by-case basis.
Correct.
So I can say I'm in Los Angeles so that I can watch Disney Plus.
Okay. So that gets into a little bit of a gray area, right? Where the tool of the VPN, the tool of the VPN is a full legal tool.
What are more nefarious applications of the VPN?
So nefarious applications of the VPN, or ways to nefariously use the application, would be to, if you wanted, let's say, there was a time where Fresh Prince was on Netflix.
In
France, right? So it wasn't available in the United States. They don't want to show it
to us in the U.S.
But on the servers that were
accessible to the French market.
The only way to get to that content was to have your
VPN reading it's from France.
Correct. Yes. And so VPNs will take and give you another IP address and give you access to those servers to be able to mask yourself. So if in the and then
Netflix
also
don't like that.
Netflix doesn't like that. Amazon doesn't like that. The reason being is because you're accessing copyrighted material.
Correct.
Right? And that copyrighted material is only accessible within the laws that the copyright
for that geopolitical region.
Correct.
It's the laws for that state.
Correct.
Or country, rather.
Use in those type of applications, use those at your own risk. Other positive ways to use VPNs would be if you are going to a public Wi-Fi network. Okay.
Like these public access networks and like the parks
like
and the malls
via
and
free
these
access.
public businesses.
Via free access is everywhere around here.
Oh, that's
right?
true.
You go to some of the
Or VINGN
parks,
is another
or VINGN.
popular one, yeah.
While it's a great service, and we applaud the ISPs for providing access to the internet for free, that's a great service. However, there are people who sit on the network and that will look for other people to attach to the network. So back again to the term of metadata. Metadata is just small bits of data, accessory data that we're able to gain from somebody accessing the network. So immediately when you connect to VINGN?
Mm-hmm.
The VINGN network, you're giving certain information about who you are, such as your device IMEI number, your device type. You are tracked for how long you are on the network. You are tracked to see if you are using a VPN or not. You're tracked to see what some of the communications that are sent over the network are stored.
Types of data.
Types of data. If you're sending movies, if you're sending,
audio
whatever.
files,
There's tons of data that these companies track on you immediately when you connect. A way to combat against that, you can still access the network but use a VPN. Right? The VPN will mask your connection to that network so that if somebody else is monitoring the network, they can't see exactly what you're doing and where you're connecting from. I could be sitting in the middle, right there in front of the GERS building. Yeah, there's a VIA network by the
basketball courts.
By the basketball courts, I could be sitting right there in my car using the network, but the network, if I'm using a VPN, the network can identify me as if I was in Australia or if I were in China. But I could be physically sitting in that parking lot, but the network will identify me, if I'm using a VPN, will identify me in a different region.
Wherever you select.
Correct. And that's a very, very good tool if you are using these free Wi-Fi networks to access your bank account information, or to transfer money, or to access tax documents, right? If you're sending this information, sensitive data over the internet, and you're not protecting it, right? VPNs also help with encryption. Encryption is masking your data, right? If you're not using those protocols, then hackers or people who want to use your data against you or use it in a malicious manner, they can take that information and grab it right out of the network.
Candy from a baby.
Candy from a baby.
Don't be a baby.
Another is... we talked about VPN
malware software.
Malware software. So there are malware is basically a short term for malicious software, right? And I know a lot of people here in the Virgin Islands use torrents, right? They use BitTorrents, and they download information off the internet into their computer for them to use from places that they may not know where it's coming from. Okay?
More often than not.
More often
than
not.
When I was using LimeWire, I did not know where those files were coming from.
Back in the day, LimeWire, it was Napster, LimeWire, FrostWire, right? All these torrent applications that allow you to basically piece together data from various sources.
People all over the world are just uploading files.
All over the world. And you don't know who you're talking to, or you don't know what kind of file you're getting.
What is attached. Like, I'm downloading my Lil Wayne, a Millie, but I'm probably getting a virus that's also in the same folder that I'm not really paying attention to.
Yes. So you're not only just downloading a file, you're downloading a folder, right? And within that folder is the file that you may want, but there may be other accessory files in that same folder. So when you download it through FrostWire and you install it and save it to your desktop or save it to your downloads, you may be saving what is called executable files, which means that as soon as you open that folder, those files start running. And if you don't have the if you don't have the correct protection on your device or your computer, those executable files may start to wreak havoc on the rest of your system, meaning they may start deleting other files. They may start to give you pop-ups, right? Pop-ups asking for, saying, hey, you have a virus, come to this website.
Pay this money on this website. Okay.
So those are just things that you need to be aware of. The way that Malwarebytes, it's an application called Malwarebytes.
This is applicable for Apple computers, PCs.
Malwarebytes was first built for the Apple platform, right? Because so the Apple platform has been really good at protecting the user from viruses. Okay, that has been one of the hallmarks of the Apple platform, is that the way that they encrypt and sandbox
It's
the
a sandbox
user.
environment.
Yes, they sandbox that user, so there's it decreases the amount of risks that are able to attack, or decreases the amount of threats that are able to attack your system.
Unless you're using torrents.
You are the super user, right? The computer will only has ways to help safeguard you, but if you click download, you are the user, and the computer will listen to what you have to say. So you have to be very, very careful what you download into your computer and what websites you visit. Malwarebytes, like I said, was made for the Apple platform because Malwarebytes doesn't necessarily, it scans for viruses, but it's more so scanning for malware in the sense of bits of files that are trying to access your computer to gain personal information from you. Okay, malware. There's certain malware that is only trying to gain your credit card information or your location or other bits of data that are not necessarily passwords. Right? There are viruses that like Norton antivirus. I'm pretty sure that some of you guys may have that on some of your systems. Those type of things, viruses attack your system to try to delete files or take over use of the computer. Those are viruses. Malware, in this sense, malware is software that is trying to gain access to your data or trying to get you to provide sensitive data, right? So you'll see there's applications try to get you to sign in. You'll see applications like on the Mac platform called MacKeeper, right? I'm pretty sure it's one of the more popular ones. MacKeeper will come up and say, "Hey, we've identified 3 or 4 viruses. You need to download this software, follow this link."
Here you go, downloading
downloading more software, and then to download that software to get the premium package, they want your contact information, your billing address, your first and last name, etc., etc. While you may get that one download, you'll see 2 weeks later, why do I have $300 charged from?
Now you're seeing charges popping up on your statements.
That's how that happens. Also, So Malwarebytes was an application that was built by an Apple employee, and it focuses directly on malware-specific software that is looking for your data specifically, right? Trying to gain access or trying to mine data from you. Malwarebytes is a free program. You can download it. It does have a premium premium package.
A
paid feature where it does automatic tracking. The free version is just a manual track. A manual track. What was your question after that?
The next option I would want to discuss would be WPS, Wi-Fi protected setup.
Yes. So just that speaks about making sure that you have a very strong password for your Wi-Fi network, right? So this talks more a little bit about cybersecurity hygiene, right? Just going through points and doing a clean or an inspection of where your cybersecurity is. The majority of the people of the Virgin Islands use probably a modem from either Via or who's the other one? Broadband VI?
Broadband VI is a service provider. There's AT&T, which I mean is Liberty now, but what was the other one you said? That's the local company. That's the biggest one.
Yep. So the majority of those are black boxes that come with a
low MiFi. Is that what you're talking about?
No, those are hotspots. I'm more so talking about when you sign up for the internet. And the technician comes in and they set that up. Whatever box, it's usually a black or white box.
The router is black box to put in your house.
That black and white or black or white box is more so 9 times out of 10 a modem and a router, right? The modem.
They used to come separate, but now it's like combined in one.
Correct. Okay. To make it easier for users for setups and things, they just combine it into one. The modem is what brings the internet from the ISP. The router is what then transitions that internet signal into something wireless. And now they just have it packed into one, right? The security behind that, right, and ways to make sure that you're protected is those boxes typically come with a default password or a standard password. and more times than not, they're the same, or they may be off
Very
by
similar.
very, very similar. So if you never change your password on your VIA box or your internet service provider box, whatever they bring to you, there are people that will go around trying to connect to networks just based upon what they already know are passwords for these brands.
Correct.
Right? So that's why it's good to put your network setup in a place that isn't easily accessible by the public if somebody visits your house, right? If you are a hacker, it is a lot easier for me to attack your network if I know what kind of brand of router you're using or who your internet service provider is. It's being a hacker is all about accumulating information on your target to be able to then use that information against them. So keeping the amount of information at a low degree is your best way to protect yourself, right? Another way is there are certain routers, right, that have encryption built into them, right? So you can use that as a tool. There are ways to set up your router to where you can have a main network for certain devices, and then you have a guest network for people that want to visit. So they're able to access the internet, but then they're able to access other devices that are on your network, which may be your computer, right? So if I'm able to access your network as a main user, I may be able to then navigate back to your home computer, which may have your tax documents or pictures that you may not want me to see. So setting up a guest network in your home or your business is a very, very good. Is very, very beneficial. Also, this gets back into iOS 14. iOS 14 also they also allow you to disable, let's say, Google. Like, so here in the shop, I have a Google Home, okay? And the Google Home allows me to play Spotify, allows me to access the weather, it allows my phone to connect to it and communicate. But I had to give Google permission to my local network. Before iOS 14, that automatically happened. Or through the privacy and terms, once I agreed to those, I automatically gave Google that authorization without reading the privacy and the privacy in terms and conditions. Yes. Now you can actually say, hey, yes, Google, I want to use you, but I do not want you to access other devices that are on my local network, right? And that's very beneficial if you want to have direct communication between a device, but not having access all the other devices in your house. Another way to protect yourself is, I know you guys get a lot of emails, lots and lots of emails. Lots and lots of emails from people that may ask, hey, can you transfer 1,000 Bitcoin to me and I will give you gift cards for it? Or you may get a request.
No, it'll show up as somebody sending you a document. Hey, check out this document, edit it, send it back to me. And you're like, who is this person? And now you're like, okay, well, what's the document? And you're clicking on it. And now you have to sign in to your email address. But mind you, you're not going directly to the email. Like, say I'm using Office 365. Mm-hmm. If I need to log into my Office 365, I'm going to go directly to that web address. But when you're getting some of these phishing emails, is what it's called, a phishing attempt. Mm-hmm. They're going to route you to a website that they've set up that looks legit. Legit enough to make you think, okay, I'm logging into my email, and you're really providing them your username and password.
Correct.
Or they would be asking for credit card information. So you'd be providing all of your billing information and all of that.
Correct. So that goes back to just like with torrents, right? You only want to open things where you know where they're coming from.
It's a verifiable source.
Right.
A trusted source. That's why a computer asking, do you trust this source?
Correct. So I know, you sign up for gift cards all the time. You sign up for newsletters from all these different places. So it may be a little difficult, to monitor where these emails are coming from. But I would stress that before you click that open button, verify who it's coming from, even if it's from Walmart or from ESPN or whatever, right? Verify who it's coming from, because there are certain executable software, right, that can occur once you open up the email. That is very, very possible. There's malicious content in emails that are sent that can start to attack your system. They can start to gather information about your contact list, right?
Now
That's
all
why
your
you may
files
see
in your computer locked down,
boom.
and they're trying to make you pay for it to get access to it. It's like when you're working on something, and now all your files are locked down.
Now that's called ransomware, and we'll host another podcast where we'll talk specifically
about ransom.
Yep.
Oh, that makes sense.
We'll have another podcast where we talk specifically about the different types of ransomware.
I didn't realize there was so many
viruses.
categories.
There's tons, and if you aren't knowledgeable about this stuff,
it's
you
easy
can.
To fall
It's
in these
very
traps.
very easy. It's very and hackers are banking on you being gullible. They're banking on you being ignorant.
Working at the Apple store, there were a lot of elderly people. It's kind of like, a lot of elderly people fall prey to the scams on the phone too, and it's like no different with the computer. Just because you're not, some people aren't as educated and aware of, things to look out for, what makes something sketchy, like some of those red flags. So you can start training yourself to say, okay, well, this might not be something I want to click on or download.
For sure. And then so where are we at?
Well, how about we transition into talking about some of the new... Apple, with this new update that just came out, Apple created a module in Tips. There's a Tips app on your phone where there are different introductory information on how to use different features of the phone. Apple just introduced a module on privacy. So, if you're up for it, I kind of want to go through their 9 different tips that they provided in that list of how you can protect yourself using your Apple products. You have the bat phone?
It's over there, but I have the iPad.
You have the tips?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have it pulled up.
You want to start going through them?
Perfect. So first is sign in with Apple, right? So you can use your Apple ID to create an account on some apps and websites without choosing a new password. Tap sign in with Apple to get started. So basically, using your Apple ID, the service will mask your email and also create a strong encrypted password for you. That strong encrypted password is saved in your iCloud keychain. Okay.
What is keychain?
Got you. Yeah. So I know there may be this huge stigma about keeping your files in the cloud, right? And not having.
Where's the cloud?
Right.
There's this ambiguity about what is the cloud? It's in the
right?
air. What is it? Yeah.
Right. So, think about it like this, right? Your computer is safe with you if you have all your files on your computer. Yes, it's safe with you physically. However, we're talking about the integrity of your data. If your data, especially here in the Virgin Islands, if you have a computer, I have tons of people that come into the store all the time. Hey, my computer got wet, or hey, it
some
failed.
Kind of damage.
Some kind of something happened, and it makes it very difficult to retrieve their data. Right? You're talking about. I partner with a company who they start at $800-900 just to start looking and start looking and extracting that data. If you were using offsite storage or iCloud storage, right, digital storage, the hardware component can be damaged, but you can always get that information back. The caveat with that is how safe or how encrypted that data is. Apple has been a forerunner in privacy since the beginning, since their inception, right? If there's any company that I trust to host, if I had
Apple
to choose one.
Throughout the history of the company, I would say Apple has always, more often than not, has landed on the side of protecting their user and their privacy.
Correct. Now, I'm totally aware of capitalism, and I'm totally aware that Apple needs to make money, but in my experience, I've been working with Apple systems for 15 years, right? In my experience, Apple has banked on the user buying the hardware and protecting the user with software. Apple wants you to get the product. They want you to have the iPad. They want you to have the iPhone. They want you to have the Mac. They want you to have that piece of hardware. They go above and beyond to make sure that they protect you while you're using the product. So in comparison, Google doesn't have a physical product other than their search engine, right? Well, when I say like main flagship in comparison, like Google has phones, but they're not as prominent as iPhones are, right? So Google's main objective for driving in profit is the reselling of user data.
That's trash.
I'll say that again. The way that Google is able to make their money is by their ad platform. Their ad platform is supported by the metadata they've been able to mine and store on their user base, or people that go and use Google or search through Google, right? All of that data they are then reselling, right? Facebook, same model. They are reselling user data for profit. Apple does not do that. Apple sells hardware. And then
how you use a phone is your business.
They protect you in how you use it. So yes. So if I had to choose a company to host my information with devices that I already use, I use iCloud. Now I pay I pay $10 a month for 2 terabytes. That's 2,000 gigs.
I want to say the first tier, the free option is only like 5 gigs, which is you're always butting up on going over with just photos alone. Mm-hmm. The next tier up, I want to say, is either $1 or $2 a month.
It's 99 cents for 50 gigs, I believe.
Yeah.
99 cents for 50 gigs.
And the next one up is, I think, 200 gigs.
Or 200 gigs. No, it's 200 gigs for 5, and I think 10 for $9.99 for 2 terabytes.
2 terabytes. Okay.
Right. What is that? 10 times. That's $120 for 2 terabytes of off-site storage and digital storage. Right. Very, very cheap. Very, very cheap. And it gives you peace of mind to where, as long as you're connected to Wi-Fi, it automatically backs up that data. Everything in iCloud is encrypted, meaning that it has tons of codes on the data that make it very, very difficult for people to read said data.
Access it.
It's just like you having a bank account. Your bank account is as safe as your password.
Your PIN code. If you just hand out your PIN code.
Yeah, as long as you keep your PIN code private, if somebody gets your credit card, as long as your PIN code is private, they can't do anything with it, right? They need that PIN code. So when we're getting back to signing with Apple, let's say you sign up for 50 different services.
Subscriptions. Like I'm shopping and I'm signing up for the newsletters and all this
stuff. Victoria's Secret for the women, Foot Locker for the guys, right? You're signing up for all these different type of services, and you have to give them an email address and password. And people can't remember all these passwords or what email I use, right?
So many.
Using Sign In with Apple will use your Apple ID, create a specific password for that platform, and then save it in your keychain. That keychain is basically, think of like a physical keychain, and each key was your password. Apple saves that for you.
So it's like, you know how they show in the movies the janitor with the big ring of keys for all the rooms? It's like that, but digitally. It's all my digital passwords on one key ring.
Yep. And that main password, your iCloud password, that same password that you use to buy apps, as long as you remember that password, you have access to all the other passwords.
That's the master key to unlock all the passwords. I could have 50 million different passwords that I access with one main master password.
Yep. And so that just to hark back to that skeleton key, right? That master key, right? That iCloud password. Apple does not save that. It is saved on your phone. So you cannot go to...
Which is why, when I used to work at the Apple store, I would always get put on the setup table, and I would always have to deal with the older folks. And no shade, the older folks never remember their password, because it's like the grandkids set up the iCloud, make the password for them, and then they don't know where or what it could possibly be. So it's like, you're good as long as you can remember that password. Because when you go to Apple, or if you come here to Joshua the Genius and we try to help you with that issue, we have to call Apple. You have to prove that you actually own the device, and they're not going to tell you the password. They're just going to reset it.
Correct.
You have to create a new password.
Correct. So that Apple has put in ways to protect
some checks and balances.
Some checks and balances. Yes, and they've, like I said, have been doing this for a very, very long time, and they are very supportive of protecting the user and their data. It's not that they don't want to cooperate with investigations or other companies gaining access to that data. They just want a clear channel of consent, a clear, transparent channel for consent. Let's move on to the next one. Never forget passwords. So this stems back to
the keychain a little bit?
Yeah, stems back to the keychain, using strong passwords. When you sign up with a platform, Apple will ask you, it'll say, hey, The pass. Do you
It'll
want
suggest
to?
the password.
It'll suggest
You
a
can
password.
create your own password, which we always use. Like, let's say my password is Apple. So I would put a capital A, PPLE, and then the number 1 and an exclamation point, because everybody's password, let's not lie to ourselves, we all use the 1 and the exclamation point and the capital on the first letter.
Mm-hmm.
But Apple, this feature is saying Apple is going to suggest a strong password, which is going to be like letters, numbers, and like
Correct.
characters.
Correct.
Okay.
And so that you can click on that to use that strong password. And like I said, you don't have to remember what that password is. It'll save it inside of your keychain to where when you go back to the platform, right, your email address and your password will automatically populate, and you just have to click sign in, right?
Wait.
Yes.
But it's going to authenticate with either Face ID, Touch ID,
Yes.
or you would have to put in that master password.
Correct. So the authentication for phones currently is through Touch ID, right? And that verifies who you are, because you should have been the one that set up that Touch ID.
So as if someone has
Or
your
Face
phone,
ID.
they can't just use your passwords, is what I'm
Correct.
trying to get at.
Yes. So, yes, that's a great point. So if you are using, sign in with Apple for your Banco, right?
Yeah.
For the sign into your mobile banking, and you are a parent, and then you want to give your phone to one of your children to make sure that they don't go and start transferring money out the account,
wreaking havoc.
right? They don't have your face and they don't have your thumb. So when the platform wants to gain access back to that password through iCloud Keychain steps in and says, hey, let me use this authentication with Face ID, Touch ID, or a passcode before I give access to this platform that long password that I created for this user. So it definitely protects you with that authenticating piece.
And Face ID doesn't work if your eyes are not open. So if you're sleeping and somebody is trying to like put the phone up to your face, it's not gonna work unless your eyes are open. Just
Correct.
Side note.
Correct. Perfect.
Okay, what's our next feature?
Next, checking password security, right? So this is a really, really good one. It says if any of your passwords appear in a data leak, iPad automatically notifies you and helps you change passwords. To check for compromised or weak passwords, you can go into your settings under passwords and security. So companies have been compromised.
Before you even launch into this, when these features first came up, I was like, okay, let me go into passwords in my settings and see if there are any compromised ones. Me thinking, I take my due diligence to change my passwords every 90 days. Like, it's not gonna be compromised. I had like 40 something accounts that were compromised, and I was like, what kind of life am I living? I was just like, wow. Like, it makes it very apparent, like which accounts you need to go and change the passwords on.
Definitely, for sure. And so, there's, I think, was it Banco or was it First Bank?
Both of them have had breaches of
and then even
information. And WAPA.
Right?
Yeah. Anybody who was paying online, I know this was like all over the news a couple months ago. The online payment system that WAPA uses was compromised. So like all the login information for those users using that online payment system was compromised. So you should probably change that password if you haven't yet.
Yep. And so when those repositories or those servers get attacked, hackers then store all of these passwords. The way that this is beneficial for the hacker is that if they can compare an email address to a password, you might have used that same combination in other places.
On other
Correct.
accounts.
So
yeah.
if you set up your WAPA with allday@gmail.com and your password is apple1234, you may have used this same combination for your Banco, or you may have used the same combination for
my phone, my AT&T account,
for other accounts, right? So this is a feature that scans that password and it compares it to information about data leaks and passwords to see if you are using a password that is out there in the ether that is being
in the interwebs,
interwebs that has been compromised and that has been saved through a data leak, right? And so this prompts you to say, hey, this has been compromised, you should change it. And again, Apple will say, hey, if you want to change it, we'll provide a strong password for you. Next one is, so I talked about this one a little bit. See when your camera and mic are being used, right? So there will be applications that will need access to your camera, such as like Instagram. So when you're doing an Insta Live, you can see the indicators. The green one is for your camera, and the orange one is for your mic, right? So that's at the top right hand corner of your phone or your iPads, and you'll see those indicator lights come on to
notify you. It's a visual cue.
Yep, to give you a notification that these features are being used. This is really good because, like I said in the past, when using Facebook or using Alexa or using other devices that scan for ambient, that scan for ambient noise, you can have a notification that say, "Hey, I'm being monitored right now." Right? It just gives you a little bit of more awareness of what's going on, and that's really powerful. So let's go. Hide message previews. Right, so hiding message previews when you get notifications through messages, right? So if somebody is sending you sensitive data through a text message, somebody that picks up your phone won't be able to automatically see
them, a preview of the message on the screen before actually opening the device. Okay.
Now this, for your average user, it may be easier for you to have that
readily accessible.
That feature
it depends
disabled.
On the level of things you need to protect where you land.
Correct.
As far as enabling some of these things.
Yes, privacy is all about how comfortable you feel sharing your data with the public or with other companies. So it's finding what works for you. You don't have to utilize all of these different
measures,
tools.
Yeah.
You can pick which one works best for you. I know here in the store for my personal phone, I have the messages previews turned off, right? Because there's much more personal data that comes through my phone as opposed to my business phone. The business phone here, I'm getting text messages about.
You want to see things as they're coming up.
Yeah, I want to see things as they're coming in. I need to be able to act on them immediately. So when I look at my phone and I authenticate with Face ID or Touch ID, those messages automatically come up. So just whichever works best for you. So there's a feature of being able to share your approximate location as opposed to your precise location, right? If you do not want an app to know your exact location, you can share an approximate location instead, and you can change this in settings, privacy, and location services.
So it just widens the radius?
It widens the scope. So if you don't want to be precisely tracked to say, hey, I'm at 1, 2, 3, 4.
I'm at Pueblo.
Yeah, I'm at Pueblo.
I'm in town.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. To give just a more approximate location. I want to stop real quick just to talk about tracking on cell phone towers.
Oh yes, because this is happening here in the Virgin Islands with our local police department. So let's talk a little bit about how our metadata is being used and tracked by way of the cell phone tower. Like, how are the police able to use that information? Why is it valuable?
Yes. Okay, so let's give an example. I believe this was last year. There was a shooting around the field. There was a
hospital
shooting.
Ground.
Yeah. There was a shooting.
There was a ramp up in violence. There was a lot of activity.
And I forget the company. I forget the company's name, but the police.
AT&T. It was AT&T.
No. There was a separate security company that came in.
Really?
Yes, that partnered with the police and AT&T. It was a separate security company that was analyzing the data.
The metadata. Oh, they were crunching the numbers.
They were crunching the numbers. Yes. So basically, what the security company was doing, they were using the metadata that is stored by the AT&T towers to trace people that were in that area during the shooting. The movement of people. So, Justin.
Yeah, so basically when you're saying metadata, the specific data point you're referring to is the IMEI number.
Yes, well.
Because when I make a phone call, it's going to ping whichever tower is closest to me and say, this IMEI number is requesting access.
Correct.
To make a phone call.
Correct. And so, but not only the IMEI number, there's the location of where you are, there's your device type, there's the level of security that you have on your phone, there's
the length of time you're connected to the particular which tower, so they can see how you're moving based on which tower you ping off at what space of time.
Correct. And this is all public information. Okay,
there's no layer of privacy.
There's no layer of privacy right there, because your phone is accessing a public tower. And once your SIM card activates and tries to request access to that tower to open up communication, that information about your device through that request is saved by AT&T. So that when the security company came in, they basically were able to utilize the metadata that was saved on these towers or was being generated by these towers in real time to be able to say, hey, person A was around the field, around hospital grounds at 11:30 a.m. And then we saw this same IMEI number show up in Red Hook at 8 a.m. Then we saw this same IMEI show up by UVI at 3 p.m. So they're able to track you not specifically as a person, but they're able to track you as a device. And
so if you're arrested with said device, and all your IMEIs are usually etched into the phone somewhere, whether it be the SIM tray or somewhere on the phone.
And so if these companies or the FBI goes to ask your cell phone provider, hey, whose IMEI is this connected to? Because we have reason to believe
they can use your account profile with the company. Oh, yep. They don't even gotta come to you.
They don't have to come to you. They can go right to your cell phone company and say, hey, we want to see who under what account is this IMEI connected to. It is up to you as a user to know those terms and conditions for the provider that you're using. Does the provider have to notify you first before they give information?
What's in those terms and conditions?
Right? So if you are an AT&T or Liberty user, is it okay for the FBI just to walk into the store and ask for that IMEI number, and is the company going to just give it to them?
Yeah.
Right? So there's so many different ways for you to be tracked without you knowing it. And so I'm glad that we're having this conversation to make you guys more aware of what's going on, so you can protect yourselves a little more. It's not about evading the law. It's not about trying to hide to do.
The law protects our basic right to privacy.
Yes.
Like, it's very, very simple.
Very, very simple. We are Americans. We are supported by our Constitution, and our Constitution says that we have a right to our privacy, and that is what we are defending.
So let's talk. We talked a little bit about how the police we're using that specifically here for that specific operation. But we're also seeing where, with the storming of the Capitol by these white supremacists, the FBI is applying a similar approach to start to isolate some of these people. So we know that the FBI is using social media because some people were live streaming this whole ordeal. And the police are also, the Capitol building has its own dedicated cell, like tower network or whatever. So if you're at the Capitol, you're connected to one tower. So the FBI is basically like, okay, run the report for that tower. Let's see who the Congress people are to, pull them off the list, and let's analyze the list of outliers to start identifying who are these people that were physically on Capitol Hill on that day.
And so we saw there's a lot of conversation on social media going on to, hey, how was the FBI able to respond so fast to where when people landed back after their flights,
they're on no-fly list. Like, before they even get to the airport, you're already on a no-fly list.
How did they find this out it's because, just like Sarah said, they ran that report. They found those IMEI numbers that were connected to the tower. They then paired those IMEI numbers with cell phone providers.
Using deductive reasoning at this point. The data is there. The metadata is there. It's just there. A matter of breaking it down.
Yes.
This is leading us into the place. So we see where, harkening back to COINTELPRO. I know a lot of people might not be aware of what I'm talking about, but we want to look at this again, push and pull of.
If you don't know what COINTELPRO is, Google it.
Correct. So, at a period in U.S. history, the FBI was actively monitoring what they call Black Power groups, whatever. So this would have been the Black Panthers, civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. All of these people were under surveillance by the U.S. government. So we're talking about tapping their phones, obvious breach of privacy. You know, monitoring these people and their movement, you know, their physical movements, trying to find weak points to undermine the civil rights movement, because it was from the FBI level, it was identified as a national security threat, right? This makes no sense, but this is what was happening. Now we see how the full weight of the U.S. government was put behind surveilling this particular subgroup of the American population. Now, after the fact, you know, with the whistleblowing that happened with Edward Snowden, revealing a lot of these surveillance operations that were happening in the States, we've seen that there have been these various private hearings that have happened to correct the law, so to speak, so that that can't happen again. But now we're faced with a different issue. So where the civil rights movement was obviously fighting for equality for Black and brown people, you know, in America, we have these white supremacists who are fighting a whole different fight. They are an actual threat to national security. So how does the US government now toe that line of privacy when they're trying to, you know, address this security threat? Like, how do we not go too far? Because I think my fear as a consumer is that with all of this stuff going down, the government is where we have this balance. The same thing with 9/11. How do you balance public safety and the privacy of an individual? At what point? Because in order to protect, you know, the public, to some degree are going to infringe on the personal privacy of the individual. Mm-hmm. So like at the airport before 9/11, you used to just waltz in the airport, get on a plane, you know, do what you gotta do. Nobody was searching your stuff. But now, like, we have like these full, like, you have to step into the machine and it's doing a scan of you and they're going through all of your items in order to get onto the plane. So in the social media landscape, where do you see us landing, considering these things that are happening, you know, in the US, in the mainland, with these white supremacist groups?
That's a really good question.
Because does it fall on the companies? Because we've seen there's been, you know, the private companies have been responding in that Facebook, Twitter are, you know, taking down accounts that are promoting hashtag Stop the Steal or QAnon accounts. They're removing those accounts because they're in violation of, you know, different speech standards or whatever. Or Amazon, for example, taking down platforms like Parler. Because it's like once everybody got kicked off of Facebook and Twitter, a lot of these white supremacist groups were going to other more tolerant platforms like Parler until Amazon and Google, you know, pulled their web stream, you know, their hosting services. So it's like, what happens now? These people, do they go into the darker corners of the web, more encrypted places that are less accessible to, you know, the FBI? Because like the FBI obviously they were able to look at all of this data from social media and from the cell phone companies to find who these people are. So it's like, what is this new space that we're stepping into in regards to the privacy of our information?
I think the start is for the government, members of the government, to become more aware and knowledgeable about cybersecurity and what it actually means, right? Because if those lawmakers really knew what encryption is and what it does,
they don't even know what Facebook is. When you look at the antitrust hearings on C-SPAN, It is like watching children. These people don't know
so
the ass from the elbow. Like, it's crazy. So how can we trust our legislators if they don't even know like what social media is? How can I expect them to understand privacy?
Correct.
This speaks to who we're electing.
Correct.
We need to pay attention. You know, if we're going to be active in our democracy, we need to make sure our legislators are working in our best interest.
The disparity between the intelligence of those that are running the tech platforms and running the ISPs is drastically different, or is vastly different than those that are in Congress, right? Their level of knowledge on this topic is low to a point where it makes it difficult to have a conversation.
Even
right?
on the surface.
Even on the surface, because they see encryption and privacy as a bad thing, as we are trying to hide from
they want the government to have access.
Privacy and encryption is about protecting your rights. And if the government was more aware and knowledgeable about the intricacies of cybersecurity, they could work in a better tandem or in concert with the companies in Silicon Valley and the internet service providers to be able to come up with something that makes sense. Because, like you said, yes, to protect the privacy and the freedoms of our nation and everyone, it is going to infringe upon some individual rights. Yeah, that is going to happen. So we're going to have to find some equilibrium there. But I don't think that can be attained until those in Congress have a better understanding about firmer knowledge, because they're asking. I watched the hearing. The hearing was like 8 hours to 7 to 8 hours long, and they were looking to Mark and Tim to explain certain concepts.
You're referring to Mark Zuckerberg and Tim Cook.
Mark Zuckerberg, CEO of Facebook, Tim Cook, CEO of Apple. He was looking to them to explain concepts to them.
That's not the time for that.
That's not the time to...
You should have did your background research coming into the hearing with some firm understanding. Correct. They weren't even asking the questions they needed to be asking.
Correct.
Waste of time.
I like that the conversation is happening. I like that these companies are being brought to the forefront to be put on the spotlight.
Accountability to be able to show brought into the conversation.
But accountability should not then equal stifling of freedom. Showing that these companies, or bringing these companies to the forefront so that they can be accountable to their users and accountable to national security is great. But it shouldn't then equal the government.
An authoritarian state.
And then,
I don't live in China. Like, I don't want a government saying, you can't log into this website. Like, we're turning it off today.
Yeah, no. So that we can't go that far, right? We have to be able to find somewhere, and we have to be able to find balance. And I think that certain places in the government have a well of knowledge in this aspect. But when it comes to lawmakers and those that are sitting in the seats that actually have to vote, I just don't see that knowledge level being as high as it needs to be.
Yeah.
I just don't. So until that would be...
But to be fair, we have like 80-something-year-old people who are in Congress. Like, we need to start really... To be fair, this Congress that's coming in is the most diverse it's ever been. We have more women, more people of different backgrounds as opposed to just being white, males. And we're seeing younger people being brought into that space. So I'd say that there is some hope in that, the body of Congress looks a little bit more representative of the populace. But there's still a lot of work to be done as far as us bringing more people into Congress that looks like us, who are of our backgrounds, to make laws that serve us and not laws that serve businesses and corporations.
Correct. And so, when we can get to a space where we can really feel confident that our elected officials have the knowledge and have the background and working knowledge of the topics that they are enacting laws on, I'll feel better. I'm not sure when that's going to happen. I do feel that this new administration and Congress and this new makeup
it's more conducive to progress. It's how we're shaping up.
More conducive to process. Excuse me, to progress. But we have a long way to go. And I would just really recommend for those that when you're voting at the local level, to do some really keen research into who you're voting for and
what their policy is,
what their policies are, and
what policy they're going to put forward.
What is their stance on cybersecurity, right? Cybersecurity is going to be a top topic of discussion in the years to come, in the foreseeable future. So we're
digital citizens as much as we are regular citizens. Like, our lives are becoming more embedded in the digital space as technology continues to, become such a dominant aspect of our lives.
1000%. So, I stress, do some research on who your local elected officials are, what their stance is on cybersecurity, and how they feel about encryption. What are their views on global encryption, right? Where are we at now?
I mean, the last topics I had were us discussing current events, more applicable things as far as how privacy is affecting us, like in our life. So we talked about the VIPD, we talked about stuff at the Capitol. We can do what we want to do to wrap up now. Yeah.
So let's see. We talked about the use of VPNs. We talked about Malwarebytes as an application to use.
We went through all our features and tips.
No, we have two more, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay, let's finish those up.
Oh no, three more. So third one. It's about 12, 19. Okay. We want to move photos. So hiding photos in your photo library. So there's now a hidden photo album that is in your Photos application, and you can move sensitive photos to that hidden folder. So in the event that you give access to your photo library to an application like Instagram, right, so that you can post photos, that application won't have access to your hidden folder by default.
Oh, so let's talk about application, because I know where this is going for some of you. For those of you who out here just sending your nudes all over the place, or even just to your significant other, save them in your hidden folder, so that way when your Instagram gets hacked, people don't have access to all of your very private and intimate,
that is
data, because that is data.
That is a surefire way to save your data. Put them in, save your photos.
Put them in the hidden folder.
Yep, put them in the hidden folder. It's a part of iOS 14. You scroll down to the bottom. It's a hidden folder right there. When you want to save one, you click the little share button. Scroll down, say apply to hidden folder. Very, very simple.
What's our next feature?
Private browsing. When you close a private browsing tab, Safari deletes the tab browsing and search history. So as you are venturing around on the internet on one of your iOS devices or macOS devices, you can enter in what's called private browsing.
Is this similar to kind of how a VPN operates, in the sense that it's masking your browsing? Or is it just kind of throwing away?
It's a similar concept. It's not storing. Not storing. So when we talk about cookies, right? Internet cookies. Cookies are metadata that is saved about your traffic and how you are using the internet. When you privately browse, that information is not stored. That information is not stored. So places like websites that you visit, metadata that's in those websites, bookmarks. Sometimes when you load websites, the internet server, the browser will save how that website looks, so that when you go to it the next time,
it loads faster.
It loads faster,
okay.
right? That
Is the
information
cache,
is saved.
when we're talking about the cache,
isn't
those
saved.
are some of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There's all the storage repositories in the browser. They aren't storing any information on you, so you can just browse the internet without anything being saved.
Okay.
It's not a good way to search to browse the internet if you need to use passwords and gain access to your passwords and gain access to, let's say you needed to access like private sites. Private browsing may disable you doing that because of how it disables the browser. But if you're just browsing the internet, looking at YouTube videos, or if you wanted to search the internet without being seen, you can use private browsing. Private browsing. It's a easy tap. When you tap the, it was like a two window symbol on the bottom right of the phone. You tap that, click private browsing, and private browsing is activated.
Okay. And what's our last feature?
Last is you can see a privacy report. You can see how you are being protected. So Safari prevents trackers from following you across the web. To see a list of cross-site trackers Safari is blocking, you can tap the in the search bar of Safari. You'll see a small a and a little a right in the URL bar. You click on that icon, and it will bring you up a privacy report, and it will tell you what cookies have been saved, what websites were blocked, what pop-ups were blocked, what type of advertisers were trying to connect to you based upon your cookies. It gives you a privacy report based upon your usage, so you can see how you're using the internet and how you're being tracked while you're using the internet, just to give you more awareness about what's going on.
Yeah, a lot of these features seem to be driving at bringing you, the user, back into the equation, because it is, after all, your data. It is your property. So you should be very informed about, or be aware of how this data is being used, how it's being stored, and how you can protect yourself.
Perfect. So to wrap up, I would stress that you take a little bit of time and go through your phone, go through your security settings on your phone or your computer, just to see what is turned on and what's turned off, right? You can go into your location settings, see what applications are using your location, see what applications are using, your camera. When you go into settings and you scroll down, every single application that you have downloaded shows up in that list. And when you click on that application, it'll show all the features that are all the features of your device that you have given access to this third party company, right? So if you want to turn off camera for one company and turn it on for another, you can do that. If you want to turn off location services for one company and turn it off for another, you can do that as well. I would say that would be a good starting point.
You can also restrict it based on only allow location services to be utilized while I'm using the app, as opposed to it being running all the time, not at all.
One. Yes. So there are more pop-ups with iOS 14 that will ask you more specific information about what data is being tracked. So just like Sarah said, you can have the application where it'll say, hey, yeah, I want you as all day. I want you to access my location all day, because when I open up this app, I want you to already have my location to populate that data for me. Or if you don't want the application to track you, you can say, hey, I only want you to track me while this application is open. Once it goes to the background, it's no longer accessing your location data, right? You have any other tips that people might be able to use?
No, just be aware, be informed. And if you need to access any of these resources, you can go to, you want to put it on the nonprofit website? Or?
Yes, we're going to put it on the nonprofit website. It'll be posted on the Jostle the Genius Facebook and Instagram pages. And then you can also, on your iOS devices, you can open up Tips. Tips is a great
app.
The Tips app. It's a yellow application with a light bulb on it. It's a default application that's on iOS and macOS devices that help you learn more about the system, and then also learn about the security of the system and give you some tips on to better protect yourself as you're out in the internet world. There are a lot of people out in the world that want to take advantage and that want to capitalize on the ignorance of people as
of
it
the
concerns
consumer.
Of the consumer as it concerns their data. There's a lot of data that is just given based upon just the use of the phone. So hopefully this conversation has given you a little more awareness about how that data is used, and that you guys have some tools that can help you out in the future as you're traversing the interwebs. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll be doing this. We're gonna try to do one every 2 weeks. You want to do
every other week?
Yeah. I think we're gonna try to do this twice a month. And right now, I think we're about an hour, a little over an hour and a half. So we're trying to give you guys between 45 minutes to an hour and a half of content. We're very open to feedback. Again, this is our first episode.
If there are any topics that you guys want to learn more about, absolutely give us feedback and let us know so we can start developing some content around, where those interests are for you guys as viewers. For sure. So locally, I just want to say we're shooting here at the store, at the Joshua Genius store. It's located right off of Radisgata, right here in town. It's where Crazy Cow used to be located, right across the street from Stonehouse Cafe, House of Raj. Second floor, right above Valentine's Jeweler, right next to Chico Repair Jewelry Shop. Number here at the store is 340-227-3821. So if you guys are looking for anything that is, you guys need help with repairs, with cracked screens, issues with cameras, you need some reinstalls of operating systems for your computers running slow, anything that you guys need for your Apple products, please give me a call. We're here Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday from 1 to 5. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on the Genius Podcast.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.